David will have many students, and he often forces these students to study Plutarch, a source of neoclassical subject matter. Now, although his students had this background, most of them will stray and will lay the foundations for the later Romantic movement. One of these students is going to be Antoine Jean Gros, who did several works to benefit Napoleon because he understood, as had David, the power of power. Why it's so important to be attached to someone who is particularly powerful. And he will create Napoleon at the Pesthouse at Jaffa. And look, he's taken those proportions from David, the massive canvas, and used it to great effect here. Again, look at the people in front of it and the sheer scale and size of that canvas. Now, what you're seeing is a depiction of Napoleon trying to allay fears of the bubonic plague, which had struck Muslim and French forces alike in Jaffa. Here, Napoleon is fearless among the dead and dying, Gros implying a Christ-like ability to heal by having Napoleon touch the sores of the ill. Ironically, a couple months after this incident, Napoleon will poison all the sick French soldiers to avoid transporting the plague to Cairo along with, the rest of his soldiers. Why bring a plague with you when you can simply pick up another one locally? So here, again, we see a very theatrical layout and lighting that we see from David along this horseshoe compositional pattern. So pay attention to the composition and the lighting. Everything is in this horseshoe pattern. The people beneath us are irrelevant. They kind of create a foreground, but they're not that relevant. Everything else is laid out in our horseshoe pattern. And the light shines predominantly on Napoleon and these men, whereas the Muslim doctors, well, that's another issue. Here, the Muslim doctors, or religion as they are symbolized, on the left versus Napoleon and his Western soldiers who will be bathed in light on the right, giving the sense that Napoleon is somehow correct. His idea of rationality is better than this religious interpretation from the Muslim doctors. There's an irony here, though, that the Muslim doctors, Islam is the basis of a lot of modern medicine. But that's being left out because the people who are looking at this wouldn't really make that connection. The interest in the Middle East is portrayed by his attention to the architecture, as well as the costumes of those who are living in Jaffa. This is a foreshadowing of common romantic themes. So when Napoleon goes through the Middle East and eventually to Egypt, he brings, and his army more importantly, brings these ideas back to Europe. What this does is it piques everyone's interest in the Near East. As a consequence, the academic style, which we're going to see develop, is going to follow that pattern. We have a lot of painters who are going to look at anything Near Eastern as sumptuous, as pleasurable, as luxurious, even if it's not true. So they're bringing those ideas across, and he's kind of getting at those ideas by looking at not only the architecture, but the fabrics. And on top of that, to give us a sense of propaganda and power, of course, we have the French flag flying over the port of Jaffa, which gives us the sense that they've already won the victory. All of this is propaganda. Of course, as I said before, this is not how things happen. Napoleon will simply poison the troops who are sick so as not to bring them and the disease to Cairo. But that's not a great way of viewing things. So what we're seeing is Gros controlling the narrative, and Napoleon being very thankful of this because it puts him in, the correct light.